Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would review this little video. It's by this one boxing channel named Bruce MF Vane. I thought he did a very good job in this video because I really want to squash this topic by doing this now. And let me tell you something, because a certain amount of people overall, they're going to ask me, why do you release so many videos about Deontay Wilder? It seems like you're picking on him, or it seems like you hate Deontay Wilder. I don't hate Deontay Wilder, but the thing is that when it comes to these type of topics, the Deontay Wilder fan base has proven to be the most delusional and also spread the most amount of false propaganda out there. So it's important to basically cover a certain amount of these topics because they've been trying to tear down a multitude of careers when it comes to talking about Deontay Wilder. And those main two careers would be Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. All right? So that's why I talk about these conversations so much, especially when it comes to Deontay Wilder, because it's always important to review certain propaganda and really show you certain people's motivations. Now, Bruce MF Vane is going to be reviewing a video in this video, so I'm going to be reviewing a review. But when it comes down to it overall, he's going to be reviewing some of Dante's Boxing Nation's content. All right? And what this video is about overall is that alleged $50 million deal that Deontay Wilder and Al Heyman sent Anthony Joshua. Now, there were certain details overall that there was, that people did not know behind that. Because when I said this, and I've been saying this for quite a while, Deontay Wilder was never serious about taking that Anthony Joshua fight. And I know that's not the popular thing to say, especially in America, but it's the truth. It's the bottom line. And we figured out about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago now, that Deontay Wilder even said himself, Tyson Fury, be a man of your word. All right? I was willing to face you in a rematch, when I was offered more money to face Anthony Joshua. All right, so that means what? That means the offer was real. Deontay Wilder blatantly and stupidly admitted that himself, but his fan base to this day still tries to protect him. So it is what it is. So this video really is to squash the who avoided who topic. All right? So we're going to get into it overall, and we're going to talk about who really avoided who here. So let's get into it.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter, he just recently criticized the ticket sales of Wilder versus Fury. Now, before I go any further, let me go ahead and make this very clear. Now, DAZN reached out to me to help promote the brand of DAZN. But just because they reached out to me, that will never stop me from speaking the truth.
And Dante does not speak the truth. Dante is a part of new media. And I don't care overall what anybody says. All new media is, and Bruce MF Vane, although I do like his channel, he would not even agree with me on this, but this is just my personal viewpoint of it. All new media and the LDBC they are a pro-black cult. That's all they are. They are a pro-PBC, pro-black cult. All right? Now, that does not mean that they won't tear down certain black fighters' careers. But usually that is going to be only if they're trying to promote an American black fighter. All right? Example, Deontay Wilder. They will get after Terrence Crawford here and there, at least the LDBC will. Why? Because it makes Errol Spence look better. All right? And Terrence Crawford does deserve some criticism. Because if he were really serious about taking that Errol Spence fight, he would have signed with the PBC long ago. All right? And he would have actually fought some top contenders. But it is what it is.
Eddie Hearn knows that. The Zone knows that. And as far as I'm concerned, Anthony Joshua ducking Deontay Wilder, it has nothing to do with the Zone. This is
Alleged ducking. But anyway.
all Anthony Joshua as far as I'm concerned. But let me go back to the ticket sales. I want to quote everything that Eddie Hearn said. Eddie Hearn said, and I quote, "They've only sold 8,000 tickets in a 19,000 arena. They haven't even opened the top tier. That's how big their drawing power is. We'll see how the pay-per-view numbers do. If they're big names, they'll do 1 million buys." End quote. Now, guys, ever since Deontay Wilder has been calling out Anthony Joshua, I've been telling you guys, I know I'm probably in the minority, but I believe...
You know, and let me tell you this. Because a certain amount of these guys, you know, I was watching this one channel one day, and I actually like this channel, even though I don't agree with everything that he says. I was watching a video by this one channel named Chronicles of Judah 144. And I recommend you check out some of his videos. Once again, I don't agree with everything that he says, but with his sports videos, he's usually right on point. But Vasyl Lomachenko, I believe after his win over Jose Pedraza, called out Mikey Garcia. And he said, well, that's what a fighter does when they want to fight a fighter. They call out a fighter individually. Well, not always. Sometimes it can be wolf tickets. I've seen a certain amount of fighters call out people individually or say, I want them all. Terrence Crawford. Anyway, but when it comes down to the overall, you know, I've seen a certain amount of fighters do that and it really be wolf tickets. And for those of you guys that don't know what wolf tickets means, what wolf tickets means is that, you know, you're all talk, but you know, all bark, no bite. That's pretty much what that means. So you're chatting up that shit when it comes down to the overall, but you really don't want none. That's really what that means. And Deontay Wilder was selling wolf tickets for Anthony Joshua this whole entire time. I don't give a shit what anybody says. All right? Deontay himself admitted that he turned down the contract. All right? But anyway. And now a certain amount of people are going to say, well, Anthony Joshua turned down the $50 million too. So why don't you bring that up? And we're going to. So let's get into it. And I'm going to show you why that deal, they were not going to accept that. Because Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, they are the A side. When you talk about viewership, when you talk about overall who puts more butts in seats, it is Anthony Joshua. And there is no debate about that. All right, it is what it is.
That this is Anthony Joshua's doing. I don't believe that this is Eddie Hearn. I believe that Anthony Joshua is the one that does not want to get in the ring with Deontay Wilder. The reason why I believe that is because, once again, about 2 years ago, when Wilder first started aggressively calling out Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn, he responded right away, basically saying that he would love to put Anthony Joshua in there with Deontay Wilder, and Anthony Joshua would knock Wilder out in 3 rounds. And then right after he said that, Anthony Joshua, he came out and he said something that was the polar opposite. He said, look, man, I'm not in a hurry to fight against Deontay Wilder. I work hard to get to the point to where I am, and I'm not going to be rushed into fighting this guy, etc., etc., etc. So that led me to believe that it was Anthony Joshua that did not want the Deontay Wilder fight.
And apparently he did say something like that. Let me tell you this, don't get it twisted. Anthony Joshua does realize the threat of Deontay Wilder. But when you talk about who offered who contracts and who turned down the last contract, especially when you consider who is the A side, Deontay Wilder very clearly never wanted that fight to begin with. And when you take a look at the way that Deontay Wilder has been trying to tear down Anthony Joshua's career and has been trying to tear down him as a person, you know what that means? That means that he was afraid of Anthony Joshua this whole entire time. Because whenever you see a fighter, overall, that tries to tear down somebody's name after they take a loss, or, you know, even after a win, What does that mean? That means that they were afraid of that opponent. Why did Mikey Garcia trash Lomachenko after Lomachenko lost? Because he doesn't want to face a Lomachenko. So he wants to make it seem like Lomachenko was trash. He wants to make it seem that Lomachenko overall was the one avoiding him. Alright? Canelo Alvarez did it with Gennady Golovkin for a little bit. When Gennady Golovkin would beat people, you know what Canelo Alvarez would say? Well, he should fight Lara. He should fight this guy. He should fight that guy. Gennady Golovkin hasn't fought anybody yet. That's what Canelo Alvarez would say. And what is Deontay Wilder saying, with Anthony Joshua once he lost? Oh, he fought scared against Andrew Ruiz. Oh, he never was cut from the same cloth. He was a fake champion. He was a coward. Now, I don't understand how Anthony Joshua can be a fake champion when you're both in the same division. He has less fights, a way better resume than you. and certain people are going to bitch and moan about that. I don't give a shit what anybody has to say. There is no debate about who has the better resume. It's Anthony Joshua. And people can bitch, moan, scream, roll on the floor all they want to about that. There is no debate. When you take a look at the top 10 contenders today, take a look at how many Joshua has beaten versus how many Deontay Wilder has beaten. I don't care. Even BoxingRec.com has the higher rated contenders overall. And BoxingRec.com does not have the best ratings. I think their ratings, to be quite honest with you, are horrible. But when it comes down to the overall, even BoxingRec.com knows that Anthony Joshua has fought the better opponents. So it is what it is.
Of course, Eddie Hearn has no choice but to be loyal to whatever his fighter wants. Now, as far as this, how many tickets they sell, none of that really matters. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Some good news for the boxing fans and for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, for sure. They have already sold $1 million worth tickets for the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury fight. There's no doubt this is not only going to be one of the biggest fights of the year, but possibly the biggest event of the year. At least top 2, top 3. Now, we know that Anthony Joshua, he just fought against Alexander Povetkin, and that fight was nowhere near close to as big as this fight is going to be. Now, we know that Anthony Joshua...
Why would it be? That's like comparing the first round of the playoffs or the second round of the playoffs with whatever sport you're watching to the championship. Why why overall would it be as big? But take a look at Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev, for example, versus, say, a Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz, and I bet you the ratings are going to be about the same. All right, or take a look at Anthony Joshua versus Povetkin or Anthony Joshua versus an Andrew Ruiz, and I bet you the ratings are going to be about the same as that fight. All right, so it is what it is. That is a very disingenuous way to put that type of information. Once again, that's like me saying, well, you know what? How the hell is Kawhi Leonard that popular when it comes down to it? Because the Clippers and Denver Nuggets series wasn't as viewed as the Miami Heat and LA Lakers series. Like, what kind of stupid shit is that? Why would you even bring that up? Like, come on.
Fought against Alexander Povetkin, and that fight was nowhere near close to as big as this fight is going to be. Was nowhere near close to as big as this fight is going to be.
Now, you see, this dude, Dante's Boxing Nation logic in this situation is about as ass backwards as his eating habits. This dude will order a triple extra large.
And listen, I'm not here to give any personal attacks on Dante. I'm not here to, criticize anyone to that degree. But what I will criticize is that Dante is very biased. He is very non-objective and very biased and illogical. All right? So it is what it is.
Large cheese pizza with every Canadian bacon, pork, sausage, squirrel thigh meat that you can think of, and then got the nerve to order a Diet Coke behind it, not knowing that diet sodas got more sugar in it than regular sodas. Let me explain. So you mean to tell me that now all of a sudden that ticket sales...
And let me tell you this overall, because a certain amount of people overall might say, well, you just compared Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder to the championship. Why didn't Anthony Joshua face Tyson Fury? Let's reminisce about this a little bit. Because Tyson Fury was not favored in that first Deontay Wilder fight. Now, that does not necessarily mean that he was not a good fighter. That, of course, was going to be the biggest fight of Deontay Wilder's career, debatably at that point, because some people, because Tyson Fury was off for a certain amount of years and they didn't know he was in good condition, some people might have looked at Luis Ortiz at the current time as more of a threat. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this: Tyson Fury was pretty much in the same situation that Evander Holyfield was at the time when he fought Mike Tyson. Not completely, but when it comes down to the overall, what I mean by that is that it was somewhat of a similar situation. Many people thought Evander Holyfield was done in his career by the time he fought Mike Tyson. It's the same thing here. People thought Tyson Fury was done. He had drug problems. Overall, he had been away for about 2-3 years. And then when he came back, he had not fought elite competition. And then he goes straight into a fight with Deontay Wilder, at the time the second best heavyweight in the world. So when it comes down to the overall, people overall were saying that Tyson Fury is not ready for this fight. So a certain amount of people that are going to allege, well, Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury because Anthony Joshua didn't have the cojones to, you'd be incorrect. The only reason why Deontay Wilder took that fight in the first place was because he thought Tyson Fury was done. So it is what it is.
They don't matter. When just a month ago, when you find out Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury sell $1 million worth of tickets, you had the nerve to say that Anthony Joshua's fight was going to be nowhere as big as the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight.
Joshua, he just fought against Alexander.
So what does that tell you? Dante truly knows the importance of ticket sales. And what they're trying to allege is that Deontay Wilder is the bigger star than Anthony Joshua, at least within time. Deontay Wilder never became the big star. He never became, the bigger star over Anthony Joshua. And if that fight is going to happen, Deontay Wilder is going to have to realize that he is not the A side. Anthony Joshua is the A side in every single category. Now, if Anthony Joshua keeps his belts, who the hell knows? Because if he faces Tyson Fury, I would favor Tyson Fury, although I wouldn't be shocked if Anthony Joshua won. But when it comes down to the overall, let's just say the fight were to happen next. If Deontay Wilder, and even if, Anthony Joshua loses, he's still going to have to realize that Anthony Joshua is the A side. He puts more butts in seats. He gets more views when you talk about just regular opponents. Now, I'm going to have a certain amount of these guys overall allege, oh, well, the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder rematch was bigger overall than any of, Anthony Joshua's fight. Yeah, no shit. And I'd actually have to look that up. I'm not sure overall, even the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder rematch, I'd have to see how it did compared to the Vladimir Klitschko match. But of course, that wouldn't be necessarily completely fair because I was on pay-per-view. So I don't know if I can even bring that up. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. All right, the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight were two super fighters heading into a fight with each other. The only fight that you can very much claim that Anthony Joshua had a super fight with was Vladimir Klitschko. So it is what it is. So that would not be fair to compare. It is what it is.
And that fight was nowhere near close to as big as this fight is going to be.
I mean, keep in mind that Anthony Joshua and Alexander Povetkin was at Wembley Stadium, a 90,000 seated arena, and they sold 80,000 tickets. Okay.
That's true.
Okay, Deontay Wilder cannot sell out a Staples Center, which seats 21,000, and even
that's also true.
Worse than that, he can't even sell out half. So now that you find out that Deontay Wilder cannot sell...
Now, Deontay Wilder, I do believe, sold out when he fought someone like a Luis Ortiz. But even when he fought someone like a Luis Ortiz, I'm not even sure if he would get the same viewership as an Anthony Joshua would when he would fight someone of similar caliber, like an Alexander Povetkin, or Joseph Parker, someone like that.
Out the arena, and not only that, he can't even make it halfway past the mark. Now all of a sudden, ticket sales don't matter at all.
And these guys have been trying to convince people that Deontay Wilder is the A side over Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Now, he might have been the A side over Tyson Fury when that fight first happened, but especially after this rematch, no, Deontay Wilder is not the A side anymore. He's not the A side against either of those fighters. All right, he's never been the A side over Anthony Joshua. But he's not even the A side over Tyson Fury anymore. It is what it is.
What kind of ass backwards logic is that? Okay, at this point, how can anybody get mad at me for blowing these guys' skirts up like I do? Maybe you want to sit by and be considered a retard. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to make anybody make me feel stupid. You know, because as I'm sitting and listening to this, I'm like, you're acting like I didn't pay attention to what you just said last week. You know, I don't know if y'all mindless, willingly zombies or y'all actually this slow that y'all can't catch on. And you know what? I'm going to chalk it up to that y'all actually really slow. I mean,
Well, a lot of these people did not do their research. The Deontay Wilder fans are just going by what Dante's Boxing Nation says. They're just going by what these LDBC and new media channels say. So they watch these videos and they're just like, oh, you don't know the facts. No, you don't know the facts. Because a lot of these channels are lying to you. They've been lying to you for years. Dante's Boxing Nation has been lying about Deontay Wilder for years. He's been trying to push the Deontay Wilder propaganda for years. All right? You know, they are pro-PBC. They're pro-PBC and they are pro-black. It is what it is.
I have no choice but to do that because this don't make no logical sense in any world. It's an oxymoron statement. It cancels each other's out at the end of the day. Just like I keep telling y'all, the same thing that I exposed about boxing ego. It's no different. And like I said, how can anybody get mad at me for pointing out the obvious? If I know 2 + 2 is not 5, how you guys gonna cuss me out for telling you that it's 4? But, you know, I get it. You guys need further proof and you guys need me to keep drilling this home. Well, guess what? I'm more than happy to do it. So sit back because I'm going to burn this boy slow. All right, let's keep going.
And as far as this, how many tickets they sell, none of that really matters. None of that really matters for a lot of different reasons. Because once again, we already know that Anthony Joshua, he said out of his own mouth on camera, if they give me $50 million, I will fight against Deontay Wilder. And to Anthony Joshua's surprise, Team Wilder came up with the money, which I don't know why Anthony Joshua or anyone thought that they couldn't come up with $50 million. I mean, they were.
They apparently came up with the money, but here's the problem. And Bruce, Vane is going to bring this up here in a moment, but here's also another problem. Anthony Joshua is the A side. They wanted it to be over with Deontay Wilder's network when it came down to the overall. And on top of that, they wanted it to be in America. That fight, if it's going to happen, it can't be in America. And I know everyone, and this is when the Deontay Wilder fans started to say, oh, well, Anthony Joshua needs to come over here in America. All great fighters in the past have done it. Why can't Anthony Joshua? You know, you're not a great fighter unless you fight in America, you know. So basically what you're saying is that you're not a great fighter unless you fight out of your area. So let me ask you something, folks. How many times did Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight out of Las Vegas? I'm just asking, how many big fights did we see Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight out of Las Vegas? Did he fight Miguel Cotto in Madison Square Garden where Miguel Cotto was beloved there? Did he fight Canelo Alvarez in Texas? Did he fight Manny Pacquiao in the Philippines or over in Macau, China, where he usually would like to fight sometimes? Did he fight Marquez in Mexico or something like that? You know, did that happen? No. Anthony Joshua wants to make sure he has his advantages and he's the A side. I have no problem with that because he's deserved that. It's just like with this Errol Spence Terrence Crawford situation. People are bitching about Errol Spence overall wanting a 60-40 split. Guess what? Errol Spence has deserved that. He also has deserved the right for it to happen over on PBC and a certain amount of other things. Because when you take a look at views, when you take a look at viewership, at who puts more butts in seats, who overall, has more fans watching them, it's Errol Spence over Terrence Crawford. And that's the bottom line. And it's the same thing here. Business is a big part of boxing. All right, and a lot of people, unfortunately, don't understand the business of boxing. Listen, the same situation that was going on, that is going on with Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford is the same thing that happened here. You have a lot of these people that don't know what the hell they're talking about, alleging that Terrence Crawford, he has Errol Spence shook. If Terrence Crawford was really serious about taking that fight, he would have signed with the PBC long ago and would be signing with the PBC right now, so he could have eventually warmed up to the Errol Spence fight by fighting Danny Garcia or Sean Porter. I'm supposed to believe that Terrence Crawford is serious about facing an Errol Spence Jr. when he says that Sean Porter, no, I'm not interested in that fight. but yet you want to face Errol Spence Jr. I'm supposed to believe that Jamal Charlo, wants to fight Canelo Alvarez in Mexico City, but yet he's not willing to fight Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade on DAZN. Now, if you want to argue that Jamal Charlo, overall is the A side, no problem. Because he probably is. But when it comes down to the overall, here's the thing with Jamal Charlo. All the big name middleweights, because it's not like it's just Demetrius Andrade over at DAZN. All the big name middleweights and super middleweights are over at DAZN. Canelo is at DAZN. Gennady Golovkin is at DAZN. Demetrius Andrade is at DAZN. Billy Joe Saunders is at DAZN. So just sign with DAZN, dude. But he doesn't want to do that when it comes down to the overall because he's not really serious about taking those big fights. And it was the same thing here. If Deontay Wilder was truly interested in an Anthony Joshua fight, he would have realized that Anthony Joshua is the A side of this fight. All right, and he realizes that. So he would have been able to take this fight in Britain. But Deontay Wilder was never serious about taking that. He declined. But what do these guys say? What do the PBC, the pro PBC, LDBC, pro black cult say? What do they say? Oh, well, DAZN said they screwed up the contract. And also said they didn't screw up no contract. Deontay Wilder overall, when it came down to it, just admitted out of his own mouth about a month ago, maybe, a couple months ago now. I can't remember how long ago it was. He admitted himself that he was offered a contract. All right? That's what he admitted. So you can try to protect your Black Panther-like king all you want to. Deontay Wilder had admitted this out of his own mouth. It is what it is. It's whatever.
With Al Heyman.
You know what, Dante? I'm so glad you brought this up. Because this has been you Wilder fanboys' go-to line for way too long.
I agree.
And after I bury this 6 feet deep, you're going to need an exorcist to come and revive this. So all you Wilder fans that love coming to people page talking about, oh, when Anthony Joshua didn't want to fight, he turned down 50 million, he turned down 50. Y'all listen up close because I'm finna dead this today. Deontay Wilder sends an email to Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn responds to the email saying he would like to see a contract and have a sit-down meeting. Okay? Shelly Finkel responds to Eddie Hearn and tells him no. Okay, first agree to the terms. Eddie Hearn's like, why am I going to agree to the terms when I don't see a venue, I don't see a date down here, and y'all won't give me a sit-down meeting?
And that is true. I agree with that. All right, that is that is not a legitimate contract when it comes down to the overall. All right, why would they just agree to random terms when they're the A side? If you're the A side, you don't do something like that. That doesn't make any sense when it comes down to it. But what happened when Anthony Joshua offered Deontay Wilder? Because a certain amount of people actually did bring this up. And what were the Deontay Wilder fans saying? Oh, that's just an excuse. That's just an excuse. Just sign the contract. But then, when it came to Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn offering Deontay Wilder a DAZN contract, what happened? All of a sudden, these allegations came out of nowhere. Oh, well, we didn't have a date. We didn't have a venue. Well, yeah, how do you expect Deontay Wilder to sign a contract like that? That's what they said. So all of a sudden, they're using the same excuses. But anyway.
Then instead of responding to Eddie Hearn, Shelly Finkel runs to the press talking about, oh, we offered him $50 million. We offered him $50 million. Now, this is what they haven't told you about the $50 million.
And once again, don't get me wrong. If Anthony Joshua really, really, really did want to fight Deontay Wilder that badly, he probably would have fought him in America. But when it comes down to it, don't get it wrong. Anthony does realize the threat of Deontay Wilder. But I'm not going to sit here claiming that he was ducking Deontay Wilder because Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn had offered Deontay Wilder. I don't just believe one contract. I believe they offered him a couple. So it is what it is. But I know for sure they offered him one. And Deontay turned it down. So you can chat all this shit all you want to. Deontay was the one that turned that contract down. Anyway.
So listen up close. Number one, the $50 million didn't come from Al Heyman. And number two, that $50 million was contingent upon Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua, and his team giving up the TV rights to air the fight on BT Sports. Do I need to say that again?
Yes, it was. And why the hell are you going to do that when you're the A side? That doesn't make any damn sense. That's like if Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather were to fight and Mayweather says, you know what, yeah, let me just go over to HBO. That's not going to happen. When it comes down to, if you had no problem with Floyd Mayweather saying that he was the A side against Manny Pacquiao. And saying overall that he wanted the fight to happen on Showtime and that overall, we need to have it over here and that I get the 60-40 split. And if you have no problem with what Errol Spence Jr. is doing, you also should not have a problem with what Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn were doing. But it is what it is.
The $50 million was contingent upon Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua, and his team giving up the rights to air the fight for BT Sports. So even if Anthony Joshua wanted to accept the $50 million, he couldn't do it. You want to know why? Because at that current time, he was under contract with Sky Sports. So if Anthony Joshua is under contract with Sky Sports, he cannot leave and go fight on BT Sports, and he's under contract with Sky Sports. And not only that, why would they give up the rights to air the fight to Shelly Finkel and Frank Warren?
Agreed, especially when they're the A side.
Okay, does that make sense to y'all? Do you guys finally understand that? Is it finally sinking into your head? But you know what? I get it. You guys need proof, right? Well, that's the beautiful thing about this channel, because that's exactly what I'm known for, okay? So if you guys don't want to believe me, here's coming out the horse's mouth itself.
Just want to talk about something that you alluded to in the press conference, something that surprised me a little bit. Obviously, a lot of the talk lately has been about you and Shelly Finkel, or you being privy to negotiations between Team Wilder and Team Joshua. The first I heard of it today was that you were privy to that due to a wanting from BT to potentially put the Wilder-Joshua fight on BT. The fact that Team Wilder or Shelly Finkel were buying the rights to the fight. I didn't know that. Explain how that side of things works.
Well, that's what they were doing. They offered the the guarantee of the 50 and the 30 on the strength of buying the rights to put the fight on. Well, that's what they were doing. They offered.
And once again, a certain amount of these people overall, they say, well, why can't the fight happen in America? Why overall does it need to happen in Britain? If Anthony was that great of a fighter, it could happen in America. Do I need to remind people the horrid decision that was Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 1? And also take a look at the scorecards of Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 1 when I thought Luis Ortiz was winning that fight. Deontay Wilder's scorecards have been known to be abysmally crooked. So it is what it is. Alright? And American judges, there's a lot of crooked judges in general. Boxing is the most crooked sport that I've personally seen. But when it comes down to the overall, these American judges especially, man, whoo boy. I don't trust them as far as I can see them. But it is what it is.
The guarantee of the 50 and the 30.
For example, take a look at Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez 1. Now, a certain amount of people overall don't see that as a robbery. If you don't see Adelaide Byrd scoring it 10 rounds to 2 for Canelo Alvarez in that first fight, you got a problem. But anyway.
On the strength of buying the rights to put the fight on. Now, I'm sure if I'd have been in Hearn's position, I want the fight, and I'd say, well, no, it's got to go on Sky. But the fact was, that was the conversations I was having with Shelly. We wanted to get it out. We wanted to put the fight on BT, and we had a lot of conversations about it.
Now there it is. What else we got to say? What else we got to talk about? Man, look, if you were Team Joshua and Team Hearn, would you accept something like that? Hold on. You got to give up your TV rights? Man, get out of town with that crap, man. Listen, we don't need to talk about that $50 million no more. Okay? Did you even know that part of negotiation? Okay, out of all that...
A lot of these people did not. But anyway.
Deontay Wilder and Shelly Finkel is putting out in the media. When did they put out that part? Can somebody answer me that question? When was everybody previewed to that? Exactly, you wasn't. Let's keep going, man.
So why would it matter how many tickets Deontay Wilder sells? Quite frankly, it wouldn't matter if only Deontay Wilder's family showed up to watch the fight. This is the heavyweight champion of the world. Can you guys imagine if every other sport shared this criteria? Imagine watching the Olympics and finding out that we're not going to get to watch the best fight the best in the gold medal match because the Russian fighter that made it to the finals, he doesn't have as many fans supporting him as the Cuban fighter has in the crowd. It's a ridiculous ideology, guys.
No.
No, it's not a ridiculous ideology at all. It's called the business of boxing, the business of sports. With other sports, you don't necessarily have individuals arguing, well, I'm the A side. Or at least, you have certain people, of course, who try to negotiate more money. But you know what I mean? It's not a one-on-one thing as much as it is in boxing. You know what the problem is? Deontay Wilder tried to argue that he was the A side, and he's not the A side. It is what it is. All right? He was trying to argue that he's the A side. He is not the A side. He's never going to be the A side against Anthony Joshua unless they were to face off and he beats Anthony Joshua, which is possible. All right? Because that is a 50-50 fight in my opinion. But it is what it is. That's never going to happen until they actually face and Deontay Wilder were to maybe beat an Anthony Joshua. All right? So that's the problem. Deontay's been trying to argue that he's the A side. He wants the fight to happen apparently in America if the fight's going to happen. That's not going to happen, dude. It is what it is. That's not going to happen that way. AJ's the A side, man. But it is what it is.
What's ridiculous is your lack of...
That's like Terrence Crawford saying, well, you know what? I want the Errol Spence fight. But when it comes down to the overall, not only are you going to get offered a certain amount of the money, that Bob Arum can offer you, which probably isn't going to be worth as much money. But when it comes down to the overall, we're also going to have it on Top Rank, and we're going to have it, at a stadium that I wanted to have. That like, dude, that's not going to work. And not only that, you don't have the right to make those demands because you're not the A side. Errol Spence is very clearly the A side. So a certain amount of people overall, they might look at Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence and just say, well, why can't it just be a 50-50 split? Why can't it just be because these boxers realize the threat of these other boxers and they say, listen, I'm thinking about my future. If I'm going into a fight like this, which is a 50-50 fight, which is a dangerous fight, I'm going to get my money share and I'm going to make sure I have every advantage in my pocket that I have. And that's the bottom line. Mayweather did it with Pacquiao. All right. Spence is trying to do it with Terrence Crawford. All right. And a certain amount of other people have done it in the past as well. And it's the same thing Anthony Joshua did with Deontay Wilder. But these Wilder fans tried to make it seem like it was this such different situation. It wasn't. All right? But anyway.
Common sense and lack of basic boxing knowledge. Okay? So all those who don't know, let this be the first time and the last time that you need to hear something like this. Okay? Now listen up closely. All sports is a business first.
Agreed. Thank you, sir.
And a sport second. I'm going to say that one more time for the hearing impaired. All sports are a business first and a sport second. Without the business side of sports, you wouldn't have any sports. If it don't make dollars, come on, say it with me now. It don't make sense, okay? The sport of boxing has to make money in order to entertain any of us, okay? If it does not make money, it will not be put on, period. Okay? Now, being that somebody like Dante's Boxing Nation has had a channel as long as he has had a channel and have as many...
Now, Dante overall once again tried to allege that it doesn't matter how many tickets Deontay Wilder sells. Well, it matters when Deontay Wilder's trying to argue that he's the A side and giving Anthony Joshua the demands. Like, dude, you don't have the right to do that. That's not your call. You're not the A side. You've done nothing to prove that you're the A side and still has done nothing to this day to prove that he's the A side. So it is what it is. People can bitch, moan, and complain about that all they want to. All right, but that's like when the Terrence Crawford Julius Ndongo fight happened. That's like Julius Ndongo coming in and saying, you know what? Fuck this. Let's have the fight in Africa. My home continent. When it comes down to it over, let's go there. Because I feel like I'm the A side. Like, dude, you don't get the viewership overall that Terrence Crawford. Now, of course, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, when it comes to A side, B side, they're closer, obviously, than Julius Ndongo and Terrence Crawford. But just to give you, an example. When you're not the A side, you can't dictate those terms, man. It is what it is.
Subscribing and touched as many people as he's touched. It's amazing that he wouldn't share that what's supposed to be basing boxing and not just boxing knowledge.
Of course not, because they were trying to push the Deontay Wilder Kool-Aid. But anyway.
Sports knowledge. That all sports is a business first and a sport second. Nobody does nothing for nothing. It's at the end of the day, no matter how messed up it sounds, it's not about what the fans want to really see at the end.
I agree. Well, it is somewhat about what the fans want when it comes down to it, because of course they always want to entertain the fans to blow up a fight. But when it comes down to it, they care about their bottom line. They care about their money. All right, so it is what it is. And guess what? The boxers, especially ever since the Floyd Mayweather era, they care about their money. And they've learned overall how to grow that, and be better with their money. All right, and to learn how to, rise their earning potential to the most it can be. So anyway.
The day, they only give in to what the fans really want to see, because the fans reflect interest, and the interest reflect dollar signs. Okay? So if you're not going to support the fight, why are we going to put it on? And once again, it's a defeating.
Now, of course, many people are going to say, well, of course they would support that fight. Why wouldn't they support that fight? Deontay Wilder would be bigger than any name that Anthony Joshua will fight. And that's even debatable. Because Vladimir Klitschko might be actually a bigger name than Deontay Wilder. Now, of course, not at this point, because Vladimir Klitschko, has been retired for a while. But when it comes down to at the time, he might have even been a bigger name than Deontay Wilder. But anyway.
Statement.
Because a lot of people forget Deontay Wilder was not selling out stadiums, back then when both Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder were fighting, man. Anthony Joshua was selling out Wembley Stadium at times, which, seats 90,000 people. Deontay Wilder in certain stadiums that seated 15,000, 20-something thousand people. He wasn't selling those stadiums out in his own country. So it is what it is.
Okay.
At first, Anthony Joshua was getting more views from Americans than Deontay Wilder was. And Deontay Wilder thinks that he can dictate whether he's the A side. Like, come on, dude.
If people cared about Deontay Wilder and who he fought so much, then how come he ain't sell out the Staples Center? Can you answer that question? If people really care about Deontay Wilder, if you guys really cared about Deontay Wilder, how come he hasn't even sold half his tickets yet? It's been over a month. Explain that. So that puts the fight directly in its place where it's supposed to be. It does not need nobody addressing it. Okay? Deontay Wilder is in the position he's in because of the opposition he chose to fight.
I agree. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Because for a certain amount of the people overall wondering why AJ would be the A side, he's the A side because he decided to face greater competition. And I don't give a shit who does not like that. There's a reason why Anthony Joshua has 3 to 4 belts around his waist and why Deontay Wilder only has 1 within 40-something fights and Joshua has about 4 within 20-something fights. Go ahead and take a look at the difference in competition. You can look at any ranking website that you want to. Deontay Wilder does not have a better resume than Anthony Joshua. So a certain amount of people can bitch, moan, complain about that all they want to. That's the bottom line. Alright? So it is what it is.
That's all it is at the end of the day. I don't know what's so hard.
And let's also not forget Deontay Wilder turned down a Vladimir Klitschko fight as well. Because a certain amount of people try to give me excuses for that. No, Deontay Wilder turned down a Vladimir Klitschko fight. Him and Shelly Finkel turned down a Vladimir Klitschko fight. So this bullshit narrative that Deontay Wilder, he'll fight anybody. Everyone's ducking Deontay. All that is a bunch of stupid narrative bullshit by these pro-PBC and pro-black cults. Name the LDBC and new media. But it is what it is. Anyway.
About telling boxing fans this. Say, hey guys, this is the result of when you constantly want to cherry pick and fight bums. This is why it's not good. Because you have no leverage at the negotiation table. You become a high risk and a low reward, and nobody wants to do business with you. You need names on your resume. Okay? It's just like stepping up to the poker table. You need money to play. Okay? And let's use money and switch that out with resumes as terms of revenue. Deontay Wilder's trying to sit at this poker table, and it's a high betting game. And what do they tell you? Are you sure you want to sit down here? This is high stakes. Can you buy into this game? Are you sure? And Deontay's trying to sit up there with 2 poker chips.
I agree. He's trying to dictate overall that he's the A-side over everybody else when he has the weakest resume there. And he's just not worth that. You know, now overall his resume has been a little bit better when it comes down to the overall. And on top of that, you know, he has a little bit more earning potential. Now he's one of the bigger stars in boxing because of the 2 fights he had with Tyson Fury. But at the time, man, he had no know-how of how to dictate terms. Or maybe overall he did have know-how overall and he was just not serious about taking that fight in the first place. Because let's be real here. If you're really serious about taking that Anthony Joshua fight, well, you know, if this fight's gonna happen, yeah, we'll offer you $50 million, but it's gonna happen with our TV rights, and it's gonna happen in America. Like, dude, that's not gonna happen when you're not the A side, and it's not even close. So it is what it is.
Talk about, yeah, I want to play. No.
Even now, Anthony Joshua could possibly say, Deontay, you know, 70-30 split, let's go. And Deontay Wilder may have to accept that. Because Anthony does get a certain amount more views than Deontay. It is what it is. Now, of course, in his last fight, he didn't because that was a super fight that Deontay Wilder was in. But the majority of the time, Deontay does not get as many views as Anthony Joshua. That's just the bottom line.
You don't get in the game like that. This is why he needs the Tyson Fury fight. Okay? And it's to earn him a seat at the negotiation table. And it's pitiful. But anyways, I keep going.
I mean, why didn't Charles Martin? Why didn't Povetkin? Why didn't Dominic Brazil? Why didn't Carlos Takam? Why didn't all these fighters have to meet the same demands that Deontay Wilder has to meet to get in the ring?
Because they're not debating that they're the A side, Dante. It's the same thing with Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. You know, well, why didn't overall, you know, Joseph Benavidez overall, you know, or all these other guys? Like, I'll use Errol Spence, for example. Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Kell Brook are all very decent fighters. You know, now I think Kell Brook might have been the A side at the time. Maybe. But when it came down to the overall, the rest of the fighters, you know, how come Danny Garcia and all these other guys, they don't have to meet the same requirements as the Terrence Crawford? Because Terrence Crawford is trying to dictate that he's the A side. Danny Garcia and Sean Porter were not doing that because they realized where they stood. So it is what it is.
With Anthony Joshua.
Because all those people knew their place. They knew their...
Exactly. Thank you. See, this dude gets it. This dude, and this is very important. You got to understand the business side of boxing, you know, as well. You know, when you talk about boxing, you can't just talk about the fights and everything like that because you got so many people overall that say, well, why can't the fight just happen? Because people are concerned about their money. They're concerned about their bottom line. And people realize that, listen, I'm not going to be boxing forever. One day, I may not overall be able to speak the same, see the same, you know, hear the same, because I'm going to sustain damage from this. So if I'm going to make this big fight against this guy overall, you know, that is a decent threat, I better make my money, and I'm going to make sure I have every advantage that I have possible. And that's just how shit goes. You can like that or not like that. You know, boxing has been like that for years. So it is what it is.
Worth, and they wasn't asking for something that they know that they do not deserve.
Exactly. Thank you, sir. This dude is on point.
He wasn't asking for no 60-40. They wasn't asking for no 50-50. They wasn't asking for somebody to take 60% near the B side. Okay, you was able to see those fights as fast and as quick as you did because they understood their positioning at the negotiation table and it wasn't hard to work with. That's a very simple answer, Dante.
I agree. And thank you for pointing that out.
I'm telling you guys right now, even though it's Eddie Hearn saying this is going to affect Anthony Joshua's legacy more than anything. If Anthony Joshua doesn't get in there...
Well, you guys certainly tried to make it affect that, but a certain amount of the people are finally starting to see the light, especially with Deontay Wilder's dumbass blatantly on accident or inadvertently admitting that overall he turned down the offer. But it is what it is.
Wilder, especially if Wilder goes in there and looks sensational against Tyson Fury.
Which he didn't. In fact, he lost both times. And I know I'm going to get a certain amount of people on my, what are you talking about? That first fight was a draw. If you think that first fight was a draw, you really don't know anything about boxing. I'm sorry. Because there's no way that Deontay Wilder deserved the draw in that first fight. And Deontay knows he didn't deserve a draw. That's why when you see the end result, when the decision is released, Tyson Fury is shaking his head and Deontay Wilder is smiling. You know a fighter that smiles whenever they get split decision or whenever overall they get a draw, you know what that means? Wow, I got lucky. That's what that means. But it is what it is.
I mean, even the UK fans in the country is starting to turn on Anthony Joshua when it comes to demanding him to fight against Wilder next. You have tons of UK fighters coming out saying it. Carl Froch, he said that it was Eddie Hearn's fault that the fight is not happening.
And just because Carl Frost says that it's Eddie Hearn's fault, so we gotta take their word. This is what I mean. Like, a certain amount of people overall, like, oh, you don't know the facts when it comes down to the overall, boxing fan. You don't know the facts of the matter. What are your alleged facts? Are they just, do you have actual facts to bring to the table, or are they just LDBC and new media videos? Because when it comes down to it, those guys are not going to help you. They're not bringing facts to the table. They're bringing their own propaganda, and they're leaving out a lot of this information. So it is what it is.
Lennox Lewis, he blamed Anthony Joshua on not taking the fight. Many fighters have come out from the UK and criticized Anthony Joshua for not taking the fight.
Well, you know what, Deontay? That's cool, fine, and dandy. There's only one problem to everything that you're saying, and I'll let the UK fans defend UK fans. Because as far as you having these sea of UK fans that's turning against Anthony Joshua, I don't see them. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying that I don't see them.
There was a certain amount of UK fans that did turn against Anthony Joshua. There was also a certain amount of American fans that turned against Deontay Wilder. Now, of course, what these guys have been trying to allege is because there's so much racism in America. Listen, racism is everywhere. And I'm not saying that there's not a certain amount of Caucasians or Latinos that hate Deontay Wilder. That's not what I'm saying. But a certain amount of people turned against Deontay Wilder as well because they realized that this dude is not serious about taking the Anthony Joshua fight. This dude not only was not serious about taking the Anthony Joshua fight, he was not serious about taking a lot of top competition in general. Because really, when you take a look at Deontay Wilder's resume, who are you really impressed by besides Luis Ortiz? Let's be real. Are any of those other fights on there against elite fighters? I mean, this dude defended his title against a washed-up Chris Arreola, Artur Spilska, when it comes down to the overall. I'm trying to think of who else. Johan Duapis, who never really was that elite of a fighter. Who else? There's someone that, and Eric Molina. Those are major world beaters right there. Like, come on, man. He beat two decent fighters. One very good fighter in Luis Ortiz and one decent fighter in Bermane Stavern. But anyway.
It's well known that UK fans ride with their man. So I don't know what you're talking about of that end. But I got something even more interesting than that. I want to play something for you, Deontay. And I want you to listen very closely to what your heavyweight champion said, your most dangerous man on the planet said. Okay, you ready? All right, go ahead, roll it.
Of the heavyweight division, and that's all I ask of these guys, not to worry about the champions and calling me out and stuff like that, especially when I got something going on, If that's not working, get the next guy in line, the next big thing. So when you be here, it's gonna be demanded. People's gonna
Now that's interesting, folks. Now what did Deontay Wilder just propagate right there? What overall did he just say? Now when Dillian White was calling him out for years, did he fight him immediately, or did he say, no, you got to face Luis Ortiz in order to get to me? Because I'm the A side. Once again, these guys know the business of boxing. They're just not bringing it up because they're trying to spread their own propaganda. All right? So it is what it is.
Respect that even more. You're going to have a little bit more people on your side and just make it happen. I'm all in the belief of blessing guys. You know what I mean? I'm on a path as well, too. We got things structured and in line that I want to do. I can't always do what a fighter wants me to do, or because he wants to fight me, then I got to bow down to him and fight him. I got plans and I got goals and I got things that I want to do in this sport as well, too. I can't always do what a fighter wants me to do, or because he wants to fight me, then I got to bow down to him and fight him. I got plans and I got goals and I got things that I want to do in this sport as well, too. And people just have to respect that. And people just have to respect that. And people just have to respect that. I can't always do what a fighter wants me to do, or because he wants to fight me, then I got to bow down to him and fight him. I got plans and I got goals and I got things that I want to do in this sport as well, too. And people just have to respect that.
All right. So, in the words of your great Messiah,
great Messiah, in the words of their king, in the words of their God. Because they treat Deontay Wilder like he's a god. They treat him like he is the new Black Panther. That's what they treat him like. They bow down to him, but anyway.
He just can't bow down and fight somebody because somebody want to fight him. He got plans and goals and things that he want to do, and people just going to have to respect that. So you know where I'm going to go with it, right? Okay, then. So why is it cool and why is it okay for Deontay Wilder to say something like that, but yet he can't understand? And if this even was the case,
I agree.
Which it's not, but even if this was the case, if Anthony Joshua feel the same way, he can easily look at Deontay Wilder and say, hey, man, I can't always bow down and fight somebody and give in to these fighters just because they want me to fight them. I got plans and goals and stuff I want to do too. And Deontay Wilder, you just going to have to respect that. So my question to Dante's Boxing Nation is, how you...
That turned out not...
My bad, did not mean to do that. Let me pause the video real quick and then we will get to it.
Because if not, is that not the same thing that you're trying to ridicule Anthony Joshua doing? So I'm wondering, what you got to say now? Because if not, is that not the same thing that you're trying to ridicule Anthony Joshua doing? So I'm wondering this. Are you going to jump on Deontay Wilder for saying something like that?
And that's exactly what I've been saying. A certain amount of these people overall have been saying like, oh, what are you talking about? You're just hating on, the LDBC and new media and just black fighters. No, these LDBC and new media channels, all right, they are not logical. They are not objective. And this is why I get on their asses a certain amount too, because they're not going to criticize Deontay Wilder for saying some shit like that. But anyway.
Isn't that the same kind of antics and the same type of behavior that you're talking about? Ain't that the same kind of legacy ruining behavior that you're talking about? Oh, but let me guess, this is just going to be like them ticket sales, right? You know what I'm saying? It counts when it's your man's. No, my bad. The tickets...
Their man, a.k.a. their boyfriend, which they wish Deontay Wilder could be. Anyway.
Sales count when it's Anthony Joshua's. But when Deontay Wilder can't live up to the hype, then it's, ticket sales don't matter. So now that you heard Deontay Wilder say, hey, I'm not going to be plagued with fighting with any of these fighters just because they want me to fight them, because I got plans and goals and stuff I want to follow too. So let me guess, now it's okay, right? Man, you guys is crazy, man. You know what? I have fun with this. I thank you for the entertainment on a Friday night. I really do. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I do what I do, because ain't nobody else out here doing it. And you ain't going to get away with doing it as long as someone like me got eyes and ears on the sports, especially on YouTube. Because I won't give up till I change the entire landscape of what I see out here, because I don't like nothing that you guys is doing,
I agree.
And I don't respect none of you guys out here. But in the meantime, y'all know exactly who this is. You know exactly what I'm about. This is Gloves Off Conversation. Bruce Vane. I'm out.
That was a very good video, and I'm going to give the video a thumbs up when it comes down to it, because he pretty much destroyed Deontay there. And he was completely logical and objective. I agree with his points completely. You have to think of the business side of boxing as well. So when we talk about the discussion of who ducked who and who really did not want the fight, to me personally, it was always Deontay Wilder. It is what it is. And it's just a situation of Deontay Wilder not realizing or not being serious about fighting Anthony Joshua, because he has to realize he's the B-side. And that's the bottom line. So who really avoided who? But it is what it is. Anyways, that's really about it. Thank you all so much for watching. That was an on-point video by Bruce MF Vane. Did a very good job with that. But that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.